Have you ever really thought about it? If the world actually ends, how's it going to happen? Well, according to one major biblical view, the answer isn't some sci-fi movie plot. It's actually a roadmap, a prophetic one, laid out thousands of years ago. And what this roadmap suggests is that the final act, it's already been written. The story isn't just wandering along, it's heading toward a very specific, very planned ending.
So from this point of view, the end is, well, it's not random. It's not some giant asteroid or a massive solar flare out of nowhere. No, it's a pre-written plan, a series of events that are already in motion. We're talking about a view often called the pre-tribulation view, and it basically says that history isn't just drifting aimlessly. It's being driven towards a destination.
And in this framework, all of human history is basically one big countdown, a countdown to a single monumental moment, the return of Jesus Christ in power and glory. But here's the thing. To really get a handle on this countdown happening down here on Earth, we've got to first look up. We have to solve a mystery that's already playing out in heaven. All right, so what's the first clue? What's the key that unlocks this whole timeline? Well, we find it in the book of Revelation, and it's all about this mysterious group. 24 figures surrounding the very throne of God. Okay, pay attention because this right here is the crucial point. According to a lot of scholars, if these 24 elders, if they actually represent the church, all believers throughout history, then the fact that they're in heaven before any of the tribulation judgments start, well, that's the absolute bedrock proof for what's called the pre-tribulation rapture. And that's the idea that the church is taken off the earth before all that final chaos begins. So how can we be so sure? How do we identify these guys? Well, there are 4 key clues. First, their number, 24. This number links right back to the Old Testament priesthood. Then you've got their clothing. They're wearing white garments, which was a specific reward promised to believers who overcome. Third, their crowns. These aren't just any crowns. They're Stephanos crowns, victor's crowns, and those were promised to faithful followers, not to angels. And finally, their position. They're sitting on thrones, which is a direct fulfillment of a promise Jesus himself made to his church.
But, the real smoking gun, the final piece of evidence, is the song they're singing. They declare that they were redeemed by blood. Now think about that. Angels were never redeemed by blood, only humans were. Only people can sing that song. So, okay, if the church is already in heaven before the tribulation kicks off, that leads to a pretty big question, right? How in the world did they get there?
Well, the answer, according to this view, involves another really important prophetic idea, the removal of someone, or maybe something, called the restrainer. And what's so interesting here is how the Apostle Paul talks about this. If you look at 2 Thessalonians, he's very deliberate with his words. First, he calls the restraining force what? Like it's an impersonal power or influence. But then, in the very next breath, he switches and calls it he, a person. Come on, that's not a typo, that's a clue.
So what or who fits both descriptions, a what and a he? Well, there's really only one answer, the Holy Spirit. See, his unique job in our current age is to live inside believers, inside the church. That means the restraining influence holding back absolute lawlessness, it's the Holy Spirit working through the church. So for that final countdown to really get started, the church has to be removed in the rapture. That's what takes that specific restraining power out of the way. Okay, so let's set the scene. The church is now in heaven. The restrainer has been removed from the earth. The stage is perfectly set. And that's when the Lamb, Jesus Christ, steps forward. He's about to open a 7-sealed scroll, which many believe is basically the title deed to planet Earth. And the process of taking it back, well, it's about to begin. So a big question people ask is, when does God's wrath actually start? Does it start with the very first seal? Well, let's look at the evidence. First up, who's in charge? The Lamb. Jesus himself is the one who breaks the seal and lets the rider go. He kicks it off. Second, there's a historical precedent. The 4 horsemen look a lot like what the prophet Ezekiel called God's 4 sore judgments. And finally, you look at the whole structure. Breaking that first seal is what starts the whole 7-year period known as Daniel's 70th week, the tribulation. The judgment starts right there at seal number 1. Now, it's really important to get this. These judgments aren't just a random list of bad things happening. They're actually structured, kind of like one of those old-timey telescopes. The breaking of the 7th seal literally contains and then unleashes the 7 trumpet judgments.
And then, you guessed it, the seventh trumpet contains the final and most intense series of all, the 7 bowls of wrath. Each stage flows directly from the one before it, and each one gets more and more intense.
And when I say intensifies, I mean it gets horrifically intense. Just look at the fourth seal alone. A quarter of the entire world's population is wiped out. Then later, the sixth trumpet judgment comes along and kills another third of everyone who's left. I mean, the scale is it's almost impossible to wrap your mind around. It's a systematic dismantling of a world system in rebellion. So, after 7 long years of this escalating judgment, the world is at its absolute breaking point. You've got armies from all over the globe gathering for one final massive confrontation. And honestly, it really, really looks like evil is about to win it all. And then, just when all hope seems lost, the sky is torn open. Now, this is not some quiet, subtle return. This is a public, undeniable, glorious arrival that no one can miss. Jesus Christ returns with the armies of heaven, and in a single, decisive moment, the rebellion is just shattered. The tribulation is over. The king has arrived to take his throne. So what comes next? Well, what follows is a literal 1,000-year kingdom right here on earth. Jesus rules physically from Jerusalem as king over all the nations. And for the first time since the Garden of Eden, the world actually experiences true peace. Justice is real. Righteousness shapes everyday life. And Satan, he's bound, completely unable to deceive anyone. But here's a fascinating thought. Even with perfect leadership, it doesn't automatically create perfect hearts in people. So at the end of that 1,000 years of perfect rule, Satan is let loose for one last desperate test. And anyone whose heart never truly surrendered to God, they're drawn into one final rebellion. And that rebellion, it fails instantly. I mean, it's crushed. Satan is judged for good. And then comes the final judgment, where everyone who has rejected God stands before him. After all that is done, God makes everything new. A new heaven, a new earth, a place where there's no more sin, no more death, no more tears. It's all gone forever. And God lives with his people in a creation made perfect again. Okay, so we've just walked through this massive cosmic timeline, all the way from the rapture through the tribulation to the return of the king. Which brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? Why does any of this matter to you and me, right here, right now? Well, according to those who hold this view, the whole point of prophecy isn't just to win arguments or to satisfy our curiosity about the future. No, it's designed to do something much more important. It's meant to create a sense of urgency, to actually shape how we live our lives today, knowing what's coming tomorrow. And that's the bottom line, isn't it? If the very next event on this prophetic calendar, the rapture, could happen at any moment, then the most important question we could ask isn't, hey, can I map out every single detail on a chart? No, the question this whole timeline really leaves us with is much, much more personal. It's simply, am I ready?